first question I was going to ask? I had a good question, I swear.
Are you just using the same ones from last week?
No, different questions.
Bet. Did we get any this week? I didn't feel,
No.
I didn't get any notifications. No. Damn. Sad.
Yeah.
Where is Scott? Jeez.
That is a good question.
Found him.
Oh!
At the buzzer.
Always.
At the buzzer. All right. 8 p.m. and we're live.
We are live.
You guys can't see me, but I got a new shirt. It says I love baseball. Thought it was pretty appropriate.
Oh, I can
Had to
see
rep
you. You look like a snack today, Rudy.
Thank
I'm
you,
not
sir.
even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie. Cop, you could use some work, but Rudy.
I mean, I can't argue with it. Rudy's looking absolutely beautiful. Diego agreeing. I know Diego's saying Scott looking cute. Sorry, Rudy.
Ouch.
Well, Diego and I have a very special
This is
relationship.
true. Your mother and I have a very special relationship.
Oh! Oh! Who's talking to you, Diego? Don't get your hopes up.
Not even 2 minutes in it. Boom sauce in the chat. Oh Lord! All right, so baseball.
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 That's a thing. Baseball's a thing.
Baseball. Yeah, the Cy Young was announced tonight, which was exciting.
That was exciting. Yeah.
A little anticlimactic, I'd say, but
Yeah.
that's a good thing with awards, in my opinion, because that means that nobody screwed up and did their job poorly.
That's true. Except for whoever didn't put Darvish in any of their top 5. There was a Cy Young voter that just didn't give a vote to Darvish.
Yeah, okay. That guy's bad at his job. I'll agree.
But yeah, overall they got it right. I was pretty surprised actually, and I can put the breakdown up on screen real quick actually. For the NL, and then I'll come up with the AL. But we can talk about the NL for just a second. I was pretty surprised. It seemed like a very clear 1, 2, 3, 4 breakdown from Bauer to Darvish to DeGrom to Lamet. Which, you know, all things considered, pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
You could argue DeGrom over Darvish.
Maybe.
Besides that, I don't
You'd
really
be
see
wrong, but you could argue it.
Where did you,
Noted Cubs
Rudy?
fan.
Where did you put Darvish
See, I think
in
Darvish.
your bone?
probably was closer to Bauer than the results would indicate. But ultimately, I mean, Bauer had the best ERA by a fairly comfortable margin. Obviously there's something to be said for that. Of the three finalists, Bauer had the best strikeout numbers also, which is also pretty important. But
yeah, I mean, I would say that like we talk about like all these analytical stats like SIERA and all that stuff, but those are basically predictors of
Exactly.
ERA. So ERA is like as much. ERA is not a great stat when you're talking about next year, but when you're talking about results, ERA, the goal is to not give up runs. So I mean, Bauer did that better than anybody else, regardless of your fielding and all that. The goal is to not give up runs. So
yeah, I bump heads with people all the time about that. I don't know if it's just like the boomer in me or what, but like when looking back at a season, especially a full 162, like a normal season, when looking back on a season for pitchers, when people say that like somebody's FIP or their, like you said, like their Sierra was lower than somebody else's, but that other person had a lower ERA, I understand if it's significant, that implies luck. Like, I totally get that. But if at the end of the day, though, like Cop just alluded to, those are predictive stats. Those are literally stats that are meant to predict ERA.
Yeah.
So and that's not to say they're not like good stats or the formula is flawed. Like it just implies luck. But like, what if you're looking at a full 162, and then even more so if you're looking over like a multiple year stretch or a career stretch even, then I bump heads with people a lot. I guess what I'm trying to say with that, because I'm at the end of the day, it's supposed to predict, and like, I'm not going to use a predictive stat I'm going to use, like Cop said, I'm going to use actual ERA. I'm going to use what he actually did, not what he was supposed to do,
sure,
quote unquote. I'm going to use what he actually did.
I think to an extent it comes down to how you define being the better pitcher, right? Because if it's like, this guy had better underlying stats, these ERA predictors suggested that he should have been better, you could argue that he was the better pitcher. But that might be a line between where the award goes to who was the better pitcher compared with who pitched better.
And I think it's the same thing with hitters.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with hitters. Like that's why I've always been against anytime people bring up xWOBA or any expected stats in a MVP argument. Like that's if I'm talking about who I want next year, xWOBA is the best stat to use, but that's not what we're talking about. And when we're talking about who was the best hitter over last year, over last year's season, then it doesn't matter who should have been; it's who was. These are results-based awards, not.
So I've got the AL breakdown up on screen now, which, as you can see, was very clearly Bieber's award. The only unanimous, no, Bieber and Kyle Lewis were both unanimous so far award winners, and deservedly so. Very much deservedly so. But anyway, this discussion of awards brings me into my first question that I was going to bring up, which was...
Yeah, hit Adam. Slap him.
Violence already, Scott. Wow.
My question, and I'll tell you, I'll have some thoughts about this one, but my question, and you guys can go ahead with it, is who would have been award winners this year over a full season? Be it
every single one?
I mean, we can probably disregard manager of the year, honestly.
I know that Mattingly would not have won that stupid award. That award genuinely made me upset. And
most improved team.
Literally just the most improved team award. It made me so mad. He almost cost the MLB the season, but I was so
anyway,
upset. But anyway,
rookie of the year. Cy Young, MVP.
I think rookie of the years. I think the rookie of the years probably would have stayed how they were. I think both those guys were look. I would take both those guys into next year. I don't think they show any signs of falling off. I don't think Luis Robert would have been anywhere near the rookie of the year voting if you had a full season. But for MVP, I absolutely think it would have been Trout because it's Trout, and I think it's. I mean, they haven't announced it yet, but I think that's his. I think it would have been Trout and Betts.
Sure.
Because they're the two best players in baseball. And then Cy Young, I think Bieber probably would have gotten it, and I think DeGrom probably would have gotten it because, again, it's DeGrom, and it's always his award to lose. So I think that over a full year stretch, that's why I said that I think they should just give it to DeGrom because over a full year stretch he was going to get it regardless. So I think Trout, DeGrom, and Betts are probably that same way where they're so much better than everybody else that over a full year stretch, I think that they will always separate themselves.
Sure.
Yeah, the only one I feel really strongly about is I would bet all the money in my bank account, which is like $13, that DeGrom wins NL Cy Young over a full season. That is the one that I feel very strongly about. Yeah, there is very little you could do to convince me that he would not have won National League Cy Young. The other ones, I'm still taking Kyle Lewis. It's hard not to take a unanimous winner, right?
Yeah.
Like same with Bieber. I'm not going to not take really hard to say that. Even if either of them regressed a little bit, they're still unanimous through 60. So, I don't know. I'll go with those. And then MVP, I'm going to say a first baseman probably would, I don't know what tomorrow night holds as far as that, but if Freddie wins, I'm going to say that probably doesn't happen in a full season. I'm going to say, and same with Abreu. If Abreu wins, I'm going to say that probably doesn't happen over a full season.
In a full season.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a first baseman over once. It's very hard for that to happen.
Yeah. And also not a chance that Abreu would have matched RBIs to number of games over a full 162.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So that's
okay.
What I'll say. But yeah, the only one I feel really strongly about, and even NL Rookie of the Year, I think that probably holds.
You
too,
think Devin Williams
honestly.
over a full season would have held it?
Yeah, and that's more to do with just I don't really have faith that anybody like that Cronenworth and them
sure, yeah,
would have overpowered in another 100 games either. So I don't know. NL Rookie of the Year is a little bit different, but yeah, the only one I feel really strongly about is probably I'm very confident DeGrom would have won NL Cy Young.
That's good. So this question came to mind because I personally feel very strongly, not necessarily that DeGrom would have won the NL Cy Young, but that Bauer would not have over a full season.
Sure.
And this is because I've been, just looking at his statistics, his BABIP this season was 215, which is ridiculously low for a starting pitcher.
Yes.
And he gave up quite a bit of hard contact and gave up a lot of contact in the air without giving up. I think he had the lowest barrel rate of the three finalists, but he had a higher fly ball rate and a higher average exit velocity than the other two. So I strongly believed that Bauer was due to get shelled in at least a start or two. And that, it's possible that he could have kept shoving for the rest of the season. Obviously, he pitched well enough over 60 to get the award. But no, I think there were at least DeGrom. I think Darvish also would have hung in there over 162.
I have more faith that Darvish would have hung around than Bauer, to be
Me
completely
too.
honest.
But I think Bauer's other thing is, I mean, he's talked now about experimenting with pitching on shorter rest and all this stuff. And also, another factor is last season, after getting traded to the Reds, he collapsed in the second half.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know how he necessarily would have held up over a full 162. I think you're probably right. I think that probably goes to DeGrom, just because he's shown year over year that he can hang, to say the least.
Yeah, boy can hang, that's for sure.
AL Rookie of the Year, I got to agree. AL Cy Young, I got to agree. NL Rookie of the Year, I think it looked like, if for me, Brian Hayes, if he had missed the first 35 games out of 162 and then stayed anywhere near what he did for 25 games this year over the rest of the, 120 games, I think he very easily could have overtaken Devin Williams.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. NL Rookie of the Year would have been a cluster if it was a full 162 by the looks of it, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. NL MVP, I don't think Juan Soto would have done that for a full year, but also if he had more time to make up for the 20 games he had that he lost on the other leaders, I think the numbers he could have put up over a full season probably would have been hard to not give the MVP to.
Very.
I think agree.
No, I think you guys are right. I think it doesn't go to Freeman. I think it would have been a race between Juan Soto and Mookie Betts. I don't think even anyone now considers Machado to be quite on the same level that Freeman and Betts are as finalists. So I think it would have been a race between Soto and Betts. I would have been interested to see how Ozuna would have kept hitting over a full year also, Marcell Ozuna, but I don't think he would have been quite on the level of Juan Soto.
I also think that when you have like the smaller sample, a guy like Freeman or even Soto, if Soto played for 60 games, their value goes up just because over 162 games, the defense and the positional value matters more than in the 60 game span where the defense is just not as significant of a added value because it's such a small sample size.
Okay, but then I'm gonna throw another name back in the mix. Then, how about Cody Bellinger? Do we think his bat could have come back around in a full season? I mean, he tied for the major league lead in outs above average, I believe, and that's at a premium position in center field.
Honestly, I think that the better chance may have actually been. I think Bellinger absolutely could have come back because Bellinger's awesome. But I think Seager over 162 games may have had a really good chance at it, too. I don't
hate that either.
Because he was really playing fantastic, and obviously there's a shortstop, same premium position thing. Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are just the Dodgers, and they're insane, and they probably have 3 MVP candidates every year.
I agree. Yeah, I'm never going to say a dude who's won MVP in a full season couldn't
challenge for it.
Have the ability to challenge for it. He's literally won it before. But yeah, and especially with how good a defense he was playing, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So that'll get us moving right on to our next question, which is, how do free agent contracts that we've seen so far help shape free agency to come? So really the 3 deals that we've seen, initially it was, okay, teams are not willing to pick up some contracts, notable contracts like Brad Hand especially. Teams were unwilling to pick up that contract. The Indians first waived him, and then no teams claimed him off waivers for 1 year and for $10 million. And it looked like we were going to see the free agency before 2019 was like unprecedented in how bad it was in terms of guys just waiting to sign. It seemed like we might be in for even worse than that.
I actually don't think it's going to take a ridiculously long time.
I don't either.
Because I think that the market is not going to be friendly to the players. That's very clear. Teams are all 30 teams do not want to spend a lot of money this year. So I don't think that, like, Machado and Harper, they kept waiting out because they knew they were eventually going to get paid. That's not nearly as clear this year. And there's also, this free agency doesn't have any, like, absolutely superstars like Machado and Harper, where I think LeMahieu will get paid a lot and Bauer will probably get paid a good amount. But teams are not, I mean, Kevin Gausman, I think, would have gotten a pretty good deal in any normal free agency with how he pitched last year and before that too. But he accepted a qualifying offer, and Stroman too. I just don't think that the market is going to be very dry. So I think that you'll see some teams that will be by some teams. I think it'll be the Mets. I think the Mets will be the team that's going to be out and paying players because it's very obvious that Steve Cohen is. I mean, he's like 3 times richer than anybody else in the entire league. So, like, he's just going to spend an insane amount of money. So I think the Mets will get who they want in terms of money. But, I think it's going to be a pretty – I think it's going to be similar to the NHL, where there have been a lot of one-year low-money deals. I think you'll see a lot of those. I think a lot of players are going to want to test next year's free agency and hope for a better market next year. And then the bona fide guys will get their deals. Like Bauer will get a deal, Realmuto will get a deal, LeMahieu will get a deal. But I think for the most part, I think to be a lot of short-term deals thrown around.
Sure.
And then Lindor will get traded.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw almost all like 1-year deals. Honestly, that's kind of where I see it heading. I think. That'll be the compromise they come to with the owners not wanting to spend money, but the players still wanting a high AAV. They'll settle in the middle and say, okay, I'll give you the AAV you want, but you're only getting a 1-year deal because of the amount of money we lost. I think that's the compromise they'll come to. There's a lot of 1, maybe 2-year deals. The only people I could really see breaking that mold are possibly LeMahieu, possibly Springer, and possibly what's his face for Atlanta?
Ozuna?
Yes, Ozuna. Outside of those guys, and even those guys, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Ozuna's already kind of had a 1-year deal or 2 1-year deals now. So I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if those guys went 1 year for some random team too, and especially just because next year's class is so big. I think a lot of players are going to be wanting to be a part of that because that will inevitably reset the market value for a lot of players. No one wants to sign the year before a big free agent class. That's just not good business. So I think you're going to see a lot of 1 or 2 year deals because the players want to be free agents next offseason, and the owners don't want to spend this offseason. I think it's a perfect storm for a lot of short-term deals.
I think I would say Realmuto is probably going to go for longevity. 30-year-old catcher.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, because catcher.
I think
that's totally fair.
He would want to mortgage his future a little more and make sure that he's got that contract locked down.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah, I think LeMahieu's in that same boat where obviously he's not catcher, but he's coming off of back-to-back career years. And while there's no signs that he'll regress, I think he probably still wants to cash in when he can, because if he comes back on a 1-year deal anywhere and doesn't have the same year he's had the last 2 years, his value will plummet, because all of a sudden he's a 33-year-old who is coming off of a big regression of a year. So I think that he may be inclined to cash in for sure this year. But I think that on the overall scale, it's going to be
especially when LeMahieu's still, he's still. I mean, coming out of Colorado, one of the big deals was that his home road splits were notable, which is true for pretty much any Rockies player. But that's still a thing now, right? In Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, in terms of power.
Little League Park, yeah.
Yeah, because he goes opposite field so much, and he's been able to I mean, he
Short
had
porch.
so many short porch home runs last year. I don't know what the baseball savant. I haven't checked that, but I'm sure a good amount of those are not home runs that are out in a good amount of stadiums. And I think that his contact ability will be there probably through the end of his career. I mean, that's not really something a lot of guys lose, but he had career high power numbers. This year. That's why he was probably the best hitter in the AL this year because of his power. Because his power was up a ton. But if you put him on the Tigers or something, his power is going to be nowhere.
Yeah.
If he's playing, he needs the short porch.
He's
a
Nick
lot
Castellanos
of doubles.
2.0.
I mean, it's just not going to be the same.
But
So I think that I think that his defense is obviously a huge plus for him, where he can play.
I'll say the same about Castellanos.
But on the whole, I think that he probably wants to cash in as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Fair. He's a little older than a lot of the other free agents too, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think because he's coming off of a 2-year deal with the Yankees,
and that was kind of his first after year too. So I guess that leads into another question, which is like how much of an effect is the free agency class next offseason really going to have? Because I feel like for a few years we've been saying, oh, guys will tend to take shorter 1-year deals, try to prove themselves, and wait it out until they can get to free agency in a better time. So how much of an effect is next offseason going to have? I mean, obviously after next year there's also the collective bargaining agreement expires. So it's hard to predict exactly how much of an effect that will have.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of stuff. This next year is going to be this year is just the calm before the storm, I feel like, for Major League Baseball's future. Because when you have, like you said, the CBA, we have no idea what's going to happen with COVID. Hopefully there'll be a vaccine at that point, and the 2022 season will have absolutely no question marks in terms of spending and all that and the revenue that they'll get. So, like, I think that, and I think what Scott said, that you don't want to sign a big deal before the market values gets reset. Because, I mean, if you look at, and it's shortstops for the most part, but you can make the case that probably the top 5 shortstops in baseball are going to be available next year. So it's like, why would you want to? And obviously, shortstop is probably the most valuable position. But if you're anybody, you really don't want to lose your leverage over saying, this is what this guy got paid, and these are my numbers compared to him, or something like that. So, yeah, I think next year is going to be a huge year on the whole for Major League Baseball, and it's very unpredictable what's going to happen between now and then. But I think that you definitely will see. Nobody can look at next year. Can make a decision this year without thinking about next year, and especially pitchers, because next year's pitching class is very good, but it's very old. It's like Greinke, Kershaw, Verlander, Scherzer. Like, it's very. So it's a lot. You're gonna see a lot of short-term deals next year. So a guy like Bauer or James Paxton, who may be in the running to get a bigger deal next year, then may want to sign a short-term deal this year and wait it out to be the younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think next year, obviously the CBA could change a lot. It could change a ton of the landscape of the sport. Especially the thing that I'm most interested about in the CBA is I think they're going to mess with how service time is calculated. I don't expect the whole wait until May and then call somebody up and that you lose a whole year of service time thing to stay after the next CBA. I think we can pretty much guarantee that that's gone. I don't know how they're going to work around it, but I'm pretty confident that that'll be gone. Which for a rebuilding team like Ruhde and I is interesting because we have so many young kids coming up now, and now how long we will get to have them could change dramatically. But just looking at the free agent class, I think next year's free agent class could change the landscape of a lot of teams, like more so than maybe any other year that I can remember personally. I think that a lot of teams, again, kind of in like that Royals, Tigers, even White Sox to a maybe lesser extent now, like that are promoting people from the minors and coming up like that have low budgets. I think a lot of teams are going to spend a lot of money. But then you also have teams like the Yankees and them who want to maintain, and the Dodgers and stuff, and the Mets now who want to maintain their status. And I really think that we're going to see a lot of money being thrown around. I think it's going to change the landscape of the sport very significantly.
Well, and you wonder if some of those older pitchers, very experienced, might find themselves on teams like the Royals and Tigers that are, especially that.
Well, Verlander's coming
I was
back.
starting to
That's
lead into that, like teams like the Royals and. The Royals and Tigers are maybe the two teams that come to the front of my mind where they're going to bring a lot of pitching talent to the major leagues. And, having a guy.
Could you imagine if the Tigers get a rotation
Verlander,
Scherzer,
Casey Mize.
I wonder if there's a Photoshop of that somewhere. I feel like that'd be kind of sick. Yeah, bro. What if Verlander comes back to us and Greinke goes back to KC?
Crazy. That'd be pretty wild.
It'd be 07 all over again, 06 all over again.
I prefer to think of I don't prefer to think of any year in the 2000s when I'm thinking about the Royals.
Yeah, sadly not. Well, when was
09.
Greinke Cy Young with them? Okay, so yeah, we can say 09 too. Verlander was always on the team, so you can pick any year you want.
Who do you prefer to think of the Royals 397 Escobar in 2015?
Peyton's in chat. If you haven't seen, there's an article at 538. They were talking. I think they're doing a series on like underdog teams, and so they were talking about the 14-15 Royals, and they came up with this metric that they called Escobar.
I wonder why, because he's the worst player to ever win a ring.
So it's
ever.
like I'm still like amazed at how perfectly it summarizes those Royals teams, right? So first of all, Escobar is an acronym.
Being horrible.
Efficiency score for contact rate. There's ESC. Glove work. The O comes from glove work. Bullpen war and running.
and running.
So they took a team's percentile rank from the MLB in each of 4 facets of contact, speed, defense, and bullpen, which are, if you think about it, the 4 things that those Royals teams were built on. So the 2015 Royals,
they were built on being trash, Rudy.
I don't know, man. They got a ring.
God.
Fair point.
So
they did get a ring more than those Tigers teams can say.
I know. How is that possible?
The 2015 Royals. If you're adding up 4 percentiles, the highest score you can get is 400. The 2015 Royals got a 397 Escobar score. They were top team in contact, second best team in speed, best team in defense, and best team in bullpen, which adds up to 397. Which is pretty phenomenal. But the best part is that the 2 years before that, 2013 through 2015 Royals, those 3 teams are 3 of the highest 4 teams in Escobar of all time. You can't,
two of those teams made the World Series. You can't argue with it. Throw analytics out the window. Give me Escobar teams.
Give me an MLB team to run. I'm building it on Escobar.
You want power?
I hate
no.
Everything about this
contact.
So anyway,
Give me some speed.
So we were talking about the guys who have signed so far and how that helps shape free agency. So we've got Robbie Ray signed a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Blue Jays, and then we had 2 players accept qualifying offers: Kevin Gossman and Marcus Stroman. So that leads into our next question, which is also from the chat. And it is, with Marcus Stroman, do the Mets have baseball's best rotation next year? So they obviously we've talked about DeGrom. We're DeGrom fans. He's a good pitcher. Noah Syndergaard will be back next season. Now they will have a full season of Marcus Stroman, who, there were some questions as to his investment in the Mets after he pretty much opted out of this season and also sustained an injury. But a lot of people thought he was just for sure going to reject that offer and go elsewhere. But now they have that top three of DeGrom, Syndergaard, Stroman, and they have the potential to add to that rotation as well. We've already talked about we think Steve Cohen might fuel kind of a purchasing spree in free agency for the Mets. So do they currently have the best rotation in MLB? And if not, will they add enough to have MLB's best rotation next year?
I don't think that they currently have it. I still think it's probably the Nationals. But I think that if they get Bauer, they're because they had this same rotation 2 years ago for the second half of the year after they acquired Stroman at the deadline. And, they didn't have the offense that they had last year, obviously. But I just don't think – I don't think Stroman is a star. I think Stroman's a very good pitcher. He's a great 3 for them. But Syndergaard is a big question mark. You don't know how consistent he's going to be when he comes back. DeGrom is obviously DeGrom. And after Stroman, it's going to take a big hit. If you look at this year's rotation, they didn't have Stroman or Syndergaard for most of the year, and it was atrocious to watch anytime DeGrom didn't pitch. So I think that if they can get Bauer, they're absolutely in that conversation. But as of right now, I probably wouldn't put him there. I think the Dodgers, I think the Nationals, I think a healthy Yankees team is probably there if they still need to add another piece. Shut up, bro.
Hey, the Cubs have a great rotation too. I think the Cubs are there. They're not.
Cubs are absolutely there.
The Cubs have a great 1-2.
If they need more depth, that's true. The top half of I feel like when I think of best rotations, I probably think way too much of just the top halves.
That's
just the front line of them.
But no, I don't know. I think if the Mets do add a fourth starter in their rotation who is legitimately very good, I don't know if they necessarily go after Bauer, but be it by trade or by free agency, then they'll be definitely in the conversation for baseball's best rotation. But we've also been talking about the Mets as the best rotation in MLB for about 5 years now, and it hasn't really manifested into much.
Ever since 2015.
Yeah, free agency will obviously change a lot, or could potentially change a lot, I'll say. The Mets are definitely in the conversation. I don't know if I'd still probably take the Nationals. I'd still probably take the Dodgers.
Yeah.
The current Rays, maybe even.
Could be.
Morton, Snell, and Glass now, maybe not.
So Matthew in chat says Dodgers, Cubs, Indians are all above
Indians.
Mets, Nationals. Indians are there.
I don't know if I think the Indians.
I just have to disagree on the Cubs. The Cubs have Darvish, Hendricks, and then nobody.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're getting the Cubs being a top 3 rotation in baseball.
I think.
I also don't
so.
see Adbert
Alzolay is kind of a former top prospect for the Cubs. I think he will kind of bring back a lot of attention next year. He was very good when he pitched this year, but that's not going to be, carrying the Cubs to being a top of baseball rotation by any means.
Yeah, no. I don't have any problem with the Indians.
I think
being
so,
up there. I think that's totally fair.
As of right now, I think that it's fair, but I think by the end of the offseason, I think there's a very good chance that Carlos Carrasco is traded. Because I think they're going to trade anybody who is making any money. So I think Lindor
then they'd still have...
They still have Bieber, McKenzie, Plesac, Civale.
McKenzie.
That's rotate. It might not be. It might take them away from top 2 status or whatever you have them, but it would still be pretty nasty.
Yeah.
It's still just I think it would be more question marks because McKenzie looked fantastic, but there's still
he's still young
with a guy that young. Same with Plesac. Same with I'm blanking on the other guy's name.
Savale.
Duvall.
Yeah, Saval.
Yeah.
So like Carrasco really makes that rotation because he's a mainstay who's been consistently great for a long time. So he really he's what makes that rotation from. I mean, I think it's probably a very, very good rotation regardless, but makes it great with him because you know what you're getting from him consistently. So
Sure.
I think there's a very good chance Carrasco's the second best pitcher that anyone gets this offseason.
Throwback to the Texas Rangers having a top of MLB rotation for about 2 seconds before this year.
Yes, sir. Corey Kluber,
Everybody
Mike
thought,
Minor,
yeah.
Lance Lynn.
Everybody thought.
They don't work out.
Not quite. Diego says, "Give me the Tigers." Now,
Tigers.
that's really interesting.
Interesting.
Oh.
Spencer Turnbull,
Give me
Matt
that.
Boyd,
Michael
Jordan
Fulmer.
Zimmerman.
and Michael Fulmer, who, he's
I
gone.
know.
Don't get it
Zim's gone.
twisted.
Okay.
Zim's gone?
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah,
He's gone. He's out of there.
contract officially off the books.
Happy for you, man.
Oh, so I actually made a reaction video where I was like pretending to get like super emotional and be like, "This is the greatest day of my life." But then, literally the same day that his contract officially went off the books, the La Russa hiring happened. So I have the video of the Zimmerman thing on my phone, but it has never seen the light of day because the La Russa thing happened, and that obviously
Trump's all.
we took a different
News that
direction.
gets better every day.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
literally the gift that just keeps on giving.
Okay, so our next question is going to come to us in Comic Sans because it contains a $sign, and the $sign in the Diamond Digest font. You should check it out if you haven't. It is utterly atrocious, like probably worse than the 7.
All right,
I think it's worse. It's worse than the 7.
Let's calm down.
I'm gonna go that far. I'm
Now
gonna say
I
it's
wanna
worse than the
see it.
7. No, it's so bad. I can't even show it.
Not safe for work.
It is not.
That's the FCC.
So anyway.
Yeah, fine.
Will any current free agent earn a contract that pays them more than $25 million in 2021? Really, we've got about 3 guys on
You
the
got
table.
Springer?
Realistically, you've got Springer, Real Muto, and Bauer. Those are the only guys that could potentially get to
Yeah,
25
I
million.
don't think
Bauer
LeMay-
might do it. Bauer might do it. He'll do it on a 1-year deal, but he might do it.
Sure.
I very much see Bauer signing a 1-year, like $30 million deal somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the
You know-
figure that a lot of people have thrown around.
Yeah, when you get to those, I mean, and I think there is a chance that you maybe even a guy like Ozuna or LeMahieu could even hit that on short-term deals because when you trade the long-term commitments, the AAV goes up. So I think there's a good chance that you see a guy like LeMahieu sign a 2-year, $50 million deal. I mean, I think I honestly, the projection I've had for LeMahieu is probably around like 5 years, $100 million or so, because I don't think that I just don't think a short-term deal benefits him in any way.
Yeah.
But I think Bauer is definitely going to hit that mark.
Sure.
I agree. I think he might be the only one, but I think that he hits that mark just because he's so willing to only do a 1-year deal, and everybody knows it.
That's true.
That they're just going to have a 1-year bidding war for him.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Next up, what kind of package would
Comic
it take
Sans is a horrible font.
for the Cleveland baseball team to trade Francisco Lindor? And follow up to that, what teams, if any, are actually willing to put that package together?
I would probably say it is a significantly, insanely smaller package than it was last year.
I'd agree, and I think
Because
it is smaller than a lot
It
of
is
people realize.
fully known. Yeah, I think that the Indians baseball team have absolutely zero leverage in the Francisco Lindor. Their only hope is a bidding war. Then they get some leverage back. But right now, it's fully known that they want to cut like $40 million off their payroll. I mean, they are not. They are fully getting rid of Francisco Lindor. There's no way he's a member of a Cleveland-based baseball team on opening day.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably going to be similar to the Manny Machado deal at the deadline. I think that's where his value is, maybe a little bit higher. But I think especially if a team, if a team is willing to take on just all his contract, which I assume anybody would be. But in the end, I think a lot of teams aren't going to spend. I think the Mets were a very big. I think there was a chance with the Mets, but Steve Cohen kind of made it seem like he doesn't want. He thinks that he wants to keep his prospect pool.
Yeah.
So I think there may be a chance
he did
out, but I think that maybe they're still in it a little bit for the right price, but I don't think that they'll go past something. I think the Yankees are very big contenders for him because I think that makes sense on a couple levels, and they have the prospects to do it. I think I saw the Giants may have been interested in him, but it's about you need teams that one either have the money to spend. I mean, most of you guys have the money to spend, but have the money to spend, aren't that nervous about losing money in 2021 because most of these teams are going to lose money next year.
Yeah.
So they're just not that nervous about losing money because they're a team like the Yankees market where they know they'll make the money back, or the Red Sox. So I think that those kind of teams are definitely in it, and they need the prospect pool to at least compete with solid level prospects, which I think is maybe a reason the Red Sox aren't very big competitors. I remember, I saw an article saying like Aaron Judge for Lindor, and it is going to be nowhere in the vicinity of something like that. It's going to be.
It's going to take.
Solid.
I mean, I think it's going to happen, but it's going to take a lot less than it feels like it should. I mean,
player Lindor's
offense, there's no guarantee that you're getting any better than a 110 WRC plus realistically. I mean, sure, maybe there's a little bit of added value from a switch hitter, it's hard. It's very difficult to understate the importance. It's very difficult to overstate the importance of having a defender that good at a position as important as shortstop. But yeah, I don't think it's going to take all that much. I mean, obviously, there's only one more year under his contract. If you're trading for him, I'm assuming you have in mind that you want to extend him after you get him.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's no way that anyone's trading for him and then not re-signing him immediately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'd be a Mookie Betts type deal.
Right. Yeah. They're not going to get a ridiculous return. They're not going to get a return that, in theory, they should, I guess I would say. Like, for a player of his stature getting moved, I don't think they're going to get, 82 top 100 prospects. But I think they'll I don't know. You have to find a team that has assets to move at the minor league level, but also is talented enough at the major league level to contend. Because there's no the teams that are already at the top or have shortstop locked down for a while, they obviously have no use for it. And then the teams at the bottom, obviously, there's no reason for them to get rid of the prospect core they've been building up for however many years to then just trade it for one person. So you have to the market for him is way more limited than people may realize, and so that's why I think the return probably takes a hit from what a player of his stature probably should return.
So what you're saying is that he's going to be a Dodger.
So you want to know what's terrifying to me is that I actually think that that's possible.
Yeah,
I think
it's very possible.
I think it's very possible that they say, you know what, we're not going to play Corey. We'll trade whatever pieces. We have an insane farm system and an insane major league talent. So
here's the other thing. Justin Turner's a free agent, so you acquire Lindor for this year, move Seager to third base, and then let Seager walk.
Gosh. That's fun.
Yeah, I think that it's probably. I think like what Scott was saying is every year I feel like we have a couple of teams that in normal years will inch up and be like surprise buyers in the offseason. But in this year, there's so much uncertainty, and I don't think teams are going to want to risk the money to be a team that maybe contends. So I think your list of buyers and especially for a player of Lindor's caliber is even and on a 1-year deal is even smaller than usual.
It almost makes too much sense for the Dodgers, right? Because they don't even have to rely on his bat being excellent. If his bat is like above average, like his true talent level is, and he's a phenomenal defensive shortstop, that's all they need out of it.
No, I think the Dodgers and the Yankees are probably the two teams that make the most sense. Because they're the two teams. The Dodgers farm system is much better than the Yankees, but the Yankees still can put together a solid package for him. And the Yankees have the money, and and same thing where they don't need him to be their number 2 hitter. They have a bunch of hitters that they can rely on for next year, and that they wouldn't have to rely on Lindor. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's gonna be his market will be very interesting because I think Machado's return is gonna make a mix of like Machado and Betts,
maybe
like somewhere in between, probably closer to the Machado because he's not
for sure
Rookie. But
and Machado's
I think it'll be a solid
deal,
return.
So it was
but,
only half a year too.
But for a team that knew that they were letting him walk for years, I mean, their owner said, "Enjoy him while you can." Last year, you had to trade him way earlier than this because you could have gotten a giant return for him if you traded him last year, like this time last year. So it was just it was a mistake by the Cleveland baseball organization.
So Matthews says Arenado for Lindor straight up, which is a segue into my last question, which is kind of an oddball. I'm just spitballing a little bit here. Question out of the blue, but also not that out there, if you think about it. Which is, which of Nolan Arenado and Chris Bryant will we see on a new team first?
Arenado.
You think so?
I'm decently confident that in it being Arenado. I am just way more confident that the Rockies are willing to go into a rebuild than the Cubs are. The Rockies have not been good with Arenado making like the highest AAV like whatever or close Rocky, to before the Trout deal, So and what, it was only a 2-year deal?
Oh, it was like an 8-year deal, but it has an opt-out.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just looking at the supporting cast or the rest of the team for both players. I just see the Rockies being way more willing to blow it up. And because blowing it up for them is trading like 3 people. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Cubs blowing it up would be half the roster. That's still a very large percent of a team that has like, almost half that roster still is wearing rings. But like the Rockies have like 3 people that they could get value for and then lose 100 games. Like that. So I just think it's way more realistic that the Rockies realize the position they're in than it is the Cubs willing to trade or rebuild a team with that many champions on it. And I think Bryant, in theory, if they were to blow it up, Bryant would not be the first one out the door.
You think so? I don't necessarily agree with you on that.
Well, you're the Cubs person.
First and foremost,
you tell me.
First and foremost, Bryant was the first name on the list last season. If you heard a trade rumor coming out of Wrigley, it was about Chris Bryant, likely.
For sure.
obviously the other thing, it could it could come down to being as simple as which of them ends up signing a deal first next year in free agency, because Arenado could opt out and the Cubs could let Bryant walk. But I've seen talk this year, which personally is absolutely ridiculous, but I've seen talk this year of the Cubs non-tendering Chris Bryant.
That is absolutely insane.
That
would be so stupid.
I know. It would be ridiculous, unfathomable. And also
I think
that would be the greatest indictment of the current collective bargaining agreement if Chris Bryant, the face of service time, the face of service time manipulation, Cubs kept him down for the extra 3 weeks so they could get an extra year of control over him, and then they just say, nah. No, we don't want it anymore.
We don't want it.
They went to a grievance and won it, and then they could just say no. We don't want this year. Actually,
that would be the biggest middle finger to a player I've ever seen.
The entire players association.
Wasted 3 weeks of it.
Players union.
I think that you have. I think that you have in this situation. I think Arenado. The only reason I would just agree with Scott that Arenado is probably more likely to go is, again, like you said, that the Cubs waited 106 years to win a ring and 108 years to win a ring. And that also included a grueling rebuild to build this team. And I feel like, I'm sure you're the Cubs fan. I'm sure one ring is amazing to have.
Yeah.
But I still feel like you go through all those years of just a horrible rebuild and horrible teams. You don't really want to win one ring when all these guys are young and then just blow it up a couple years later.
Yeah,
it's been 4 years, but so I think the Cubs. I think there's a very good chance of Arenado being moved this offseason because I think that the Rockies are in that position where they are horrible and they have no future hope, where they need to completely rehaul their farm system. They are really in just a terrible, terrible position for a team to be in. So I think that, and they have some of the most valuable pieces that could be moved. Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado, and German Marquez in this pitching market are very, very valuable pieces that they can get a ton for. So I think that they would rather just completely rebuild this farm system because they need to. Because basically you're not winning with Nolan Arenado because you need to find a way to either spend a ton of money or rehaul the entire farm system, which you can't really do without Arenado.
They pretty much need 11 out of 13 guys of a real pitching staff.
Yeah. They are really horrible. So, they would need to... Yeah, they're with Story being a free agent next year, or after next year, they're not really in a position where they can. Arenado's the guy for them to trade. He's the most valuable piece that they have.
Yeah,
and Story will get a good amount back, but Story would get closer to even a Mookie Betts return. Which is a good return, but not the Red Sox farm system still isn't great. So that's a good return, but not a, overhaul type return. And no one player is going to get that, but I think that they really need to trade all three of those guys to get some sort of farm system back.
Sure.
And then lose 105 games for 3 straight years to get the first pick a couple years, and then they'll be back to being mediocre.
So yeah, I think we've covered the Rockies' perspective. I have a couple of thoughts from a Cubs perspective, and then we can sort of close out here. First is, I think I agree that the Rockies are definitely in a better position to tear it down immediately. But looking at it from a Cubs perspective, you're pretty much going at it in 2021 with a roster that for 3 years now has utterly collapsed down the stretch. Zero offense. And just without that, it's impossible for the team to get it done. And we've played this game now for a few years, for a few off seasons in a row, where you look at the roster, the talent is supposed to be there to be an amazing team, and there's no financial avenue for improvement, especially after the Darvish deal was signed. And so you're left looking at this roster like, okay, this is supposed to be good enough. Why is it not good enough, and how does it get better? And for the last 2 seasons, it's absolutely unfair to ever call Chris Bryant the problem. It's probably unfair to call any one player the problem, except maybe Jason Hayward. But it's absolutely unfair to call Chris Bryant the problem. And so it's not necessarily fair after his 2020 year to look at it and say, how do we, he's the guy that's got to go, right? I think that's a very fair point. But at some point you have to look at somebody and say, if we're trying to find a way to make this team better that's sustainable beyond 2021, when we don't necessarily believe we have what it takes to get over the top, somebody's got to go. And Bryant, as in terms of pure talent, and he's still 27, 28 years old, he's gonna command more than Schwarber. He's gonna command more than Rizzo, who's going on 31. I don't know. But also conversely, if you want a face of modern Chicago baseball and you want a face of the 2016 Chicago Cubs specifically, it's Chris Bryant. So there's so many ways to look at it and say, yeah, it makes total sense that he could be traded, or no, absolutely, there's no way he should ever be traded. But the bottom line is, after 2021, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, and Kyle Schwarber are all going to be free agents, and they don't all fit on a payroll together.
Wow.
They already don't all fit on a payroll together. So someone's going to have to go eventually, and I find it hard to believe that the right move for the Cubs is to pretty much keep the same roster and say we're going all in again next year after that's failed 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not going to dispute any of that. The only thing I'd say is I think the Rockies are probably saying the same exact thing, right? I mean, so we'll see. Like you said, there's a really good chance that the answer to that question just simply comes down to which of them signs pen to paper
no,
first.
I honestly, I just thought of the question. I was like, man, I actually really like that question. And, it almost feels like Bryant should be the obvious answer, obviously, because Arenado's on a long-term contract, but it almost seems like he won't be. I mean, a lot of Braves fans, I think, are already talking about acquiring one of the two of those guys.
Very true.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Very true.
But that our hour has expired, so that's all we've got for you tonight. Real quick before we take off, want to give a quick shout out to our Fanatics link, especially if you're doing any holiday shopping, any shopping on Fanatics. We know a lot of you guys are already purchasing team apparel, and if you use our link, we get a small portion of the proceeds, which helps us keep this site up and running, bringing you guys this kind of content, and we really appreciate the support that you do give just by following us and being a part of everything we do. Go Fanatics, go baseball.
Fanatics.
Reminder, I love baseball. We do. We all do.
We do.
So,
Very true.
That'll do it for us. Thank you all for tuning in, for joining us, and we will see you back here next time.
Adios.